Hello, welcome along to the latest Weatherquest farming forecast. Now, over the last month or so, really, we've been trying to hint at there being suggestions of some slightly dry or less wet conditions during the middle part of October, and that is really what we're seeing right now. The low pressures that we've had over the beginning of the month with strong winds and frequent heavy rain, they're becoming a bit fewer and further between, and there is some slightly longer dry gaps in between the various areas of wet weather. But that does depend on where you are in the UK, and that is still true through this week as well. So the current setup at the moment for Wednesday here, high pressures building to the north of Scotland, low pressure generally sinking away from southern Britain on Tuesday into the nearby continent by the time we get through to Wednesday. Now between these two we've got an easterly flow here, and this is actually drawing in some quite chilly air around the edge of this high and across the North Sea. Now the North Sea, or any sea really around the UK, is still pretty warm at this time of the year. It takes quite some time, weeks and months, for the seas to cool down through the autumn and winter season. So there's a bit of a lag effect. So when you bring cold air over the warm waters, you generate quite a few showers. And that's basically the setup we've got for most of this actual coming week. There's not really a great deal of change from day to day. So the high pressure, as you can see here, stays pretty much to the north of Scotland. And we continue to see various areas of showers coming in from the North Sea. Now these are going to be most frequent along these east coasts where you are closer to the North Sea, and the further west you are across the UK, quite a bit of dry weather through the second half of this week and the best of any sunshine. And really as we go through Friday into the weekend, that high starts to nudge a bit further west, but overall the pattern remains the same. If anything, the northeasterly breeze will ease more by the weekend, so the winds will fall light, and that means we could have quite a bit of cloud and patchy rain and drizzle and light showers basically stuck, sort of trapped in the flow by the weekend. So amounts of rain this week from Wednesday onwards are going to be fairly small away from the east coast, but it could be quite damp at times, but no massive amounts of rain like we saw earlier on in this month, where some places saw over 100 millimetres in just a few days. Not expecting that for the rest of this week, but if you are close to the east coast, eastern coastal counties, you could still see quite a number of showers. So it's still going to be wet at times, just not as wet as it has been. And the further west and northwest you are, the better chance of staying dry for many of the days over the rest of this week. By the weekend then, with things becoming slack, we could see some fog patches that may be a bit slow to clear depending on things. But as I say, probably quite a lot of cloud by the weekend and just damp, patchy light rain and drizzle on and off in places through the weekend as well. There are hints of some slightly cooler air trying to come back into northern Scotland over the weekend, but equally it's this low pressure down here to the southwest that's probably going to dictate how the weather plays out next week as our area of high pressure continues to weaken. So this is how things are likely to look by the middle of next week. It may take a couple of days to get to this stage, but big low out west, big trough in the jet stream diving right the way south around this low and then back up on the eastern side. So this low pressure is going to get stuck in that trough. You can see the size of this thing really covering most of the North Atlantic, and that means it's not going to move anywhere in any great hurry. It's trapped in that dip in the jet stream. Now we are going to see this band of rain coming up from the south sometime on Tuesday by the looks of things, but timing may change a little bit between now and then. So for some of us, Monday may not be too bad a day. A lot of reasonably dry weather around, but certainly Tuesday onwards this rain comes up from the south, and then that sets us up for various waves of rain and showers rotating around this big area of low pressure. So this week, relatively quiet away from the east. Next week looks much more unsettled with periods of rain, strong winds, and so forth. But the shift in wind direction by next week is up from the southwest, drawing in this very mild air from the subtropics all the way up to the UK. So temperatures will be climbing a bit more into next week. Chilly this week. Next week though, we could well see temperatures in the mid, maybe even locally high teens, depending on if we get any brightness in between the showers. And at this time of the year, as I say, the seas are at their warmest, so the showers are going to be heaviest and most frequent where you've got that onshore component to the wind. Right now it's an easterly wind, so it's the east coast seeing most of the showers. Next week with a southwesterly wind, it'll be Channel coast up the Irish Sea and so forth that see the bulk of the showers, and here it could be very wet if you add all of the rain and showers up for the week. Some places over double the average for that 7-day period. Whereas the further north and east you come, rainfall amounts, yes there will be some, but they will be much lower than they will be in other parts of the UK. So that kind of shows up quite nicely here in our ensemble data, which we've shown you many times before. The chance of a dry day, various locations down on the left hand side here, and the forecast days going out to the next 4 weeks along the top here. Brown of course indicating drier than average conditions, so after a rather wet Tuesday, the greens here across many parts of the UK, with that low pressure clearing away many areas and having several mainly dry days for the second half of this week, but there are exceptions. As I say, closer to the east coast, you're more likely to see some of these greens. So places like York, Newcastle, for example, even Norwich, you're likely to get some wet weather at times. Really, for the next few days, Norwich, notice you keep the greens going until at least, well, Thursday or so, but even into the weekend, it's still 50-50. There's still a reasonable chance of catching some showers through the weekend close to the east coast. But further inland, more browns, suggesting quite a bit of reasonably dry weather through the second half of this week. And then you see there is a shift here, early part of next week, so Monday's here, start to get some northern areas coming up with the whites and the greens, low pressure, maybe some rain coming in at some stage, just about clinging on to the browns further south. But really by Tuesday onwards, we're all back into this much more unsettled pattern, and it obviously shows up quite well here for a number of days through until probably at least the beginning of the following week. And realistically, I suspect it probably will stay quite unsettled even into the beginning of November. So certainly a week or two of very unsettled weather coming up after the next sort of 3 to 5 relatively quiet days of weather. Now there are signs deeper on into November. Notice some hints here of some brown colours coming back in again. We might see things starting to settle down a bit more towards the second week of November, but it's still a long way off, so I wouldn't want to pin too much hope on that just yet. But an interesting trend in an otherwise rather wet pattern for the next couple of weeks. So make the most of the dry weather that we've got in this current week. That's for sure. Now, if you're trying to get things done, obviously sugar beet harvest is just getting underway, still some drilling to be done, that sort of thing. The best way to keep up to date with where the showers are and where the dry slots are is to sign up to WQRadar, and here you can get 5-minute radar data. You can go back and look at some of the past events as well in the archive. Lightning alerts are always crucial if you've got outdoor plans that are sensitive to lightning, of course. You can get those sent to you via text or email. And weather observations right across the country. You can see what the wind speeds are like, what the temperatures are like in your part of the world as well. And we offer discounts as well, so head on to the website wqradar.co.uk for more information on that. Now for the bigger picture across Europe through week 2 next week, of course, quite clearly a strong signal for low pressure just to the southwest of the UK. Remember that big dip in the jet stream, big trough here. So low pressure park to the southwest of the UK much of this week means pretty unsettled weather. Higher than normal pressure down across southeastern parts of Europe. Here it will be a lot drier than normal as well. But because of the position of that low to the west, drawing up this warm southerly flow, much of Western Europe will actually have above average temperatures through this week, with frost pretty limited really during this time frame, whereas it's a bit cooler across northern Scandinavia and down here across the far southeast of Europe under that higher pressure. And just to recap the rainfall anomaly here, dry conditions under the high pressure, very wet conditions in Western Europe where we've got low pressure dominating much of the time. Now towards the end of October, there's less blue showing up here, quite a broad area of red, higher than normal pressure. However, the UK here is still situated, if you follow the pattern here, this trough is still here, it's just not as pronounced. So still likely to have low pressure somewhere close to Western Britain through this time frame, while much of Europe starts to become a bit more dominated by potentially high pressure during the latter stages of October. Now that's still drawing up air from the south, broadly speaking, so still above average temperatures more likely across many areas, but still hints of some green showing up here, slightly wetter than average conditions across this northwestern part of Europe. But notice the browns becoming a little bit more widespread across the heart of mainland continental Europe, at least during the latter stages of October. And that trend continues into the beginning of November, the high pressure becoming even more of a stronger signal up across parts of Scandinavia and the Baltic, for example, during the first part of November. We're still on the edge of it, perhaps drawing in more of an easterly flow, southeasterly flow, still a relatively dry direction, but it is possible in the extreme northwest, Northern Ireland, Western Scotland, we might see a bit of rain coming in from the Atlantic here at times, but many other places, southern and eastern areas, more likely to end up dry. Now at the moment these temperature anomalies here are sort of near normal. We have to bear in mind when high pressure builds in, we quite often get an inversion. So that may actually be warmer about a mile above the ground than it is at the surface. The nights are going to be quite long at this time of the year, and so that allows mist and fog to develop, which is slow to clear by day. The sun is getting weaker as well. So it is possible it could be chilly on some of the days, even with this high pressure building in, and that may have a bit of an impact on your temperature anomaly for the week overall. But quite a strong signal here for quite 4 weeks away really, to see browns showing up so widely across much of Europe, away from this northwestern part of the UK, where you may well more likely see rain coming in at times as well. Still early days and still some chopping and changing to be done between now and then, but in a broad view, this week is going to stay pretty chilly with showers, especially the further east you are, and it will be quite wet at times here, whereas western areas will be best for the driest and brightest weather, but possibly turning even here rather cloudy by the weekend. Increasingly unsettled into next week with rain and strong winds, but it will be milder. So any patchy frost this week will tend to be eradicated next week. And then a signal perhaps later on into November that it may turn a little bit more settled, especially the further south and east you are. But as I say, confidence at this stage is relatively low. But it is a signal worth keeping up to date on in the Weatherquest farming forecast. And we'll be back with another update next Tuesday. In the meantime, you can keep up to date with the day-by-day forecasts on our social media.